All right, what's up, guys? It's Johnny. I had the absolute joy of seeing the masterpiece that is Obsession 3 times in theaters. So I think I finally have enough thoughts to cultivate a reasonable review of the movie. If for whatever reason you haven't seen Obsession yet, this is your spoiler warning. You've been warned, and go see it. What are you doing? So, my honest thoughts about the movie Obsession. Great film, great cast, unbelievable performances. Probably one of, if not my most memorable theater trips that I can remember, quite frankly. Is it worthy of the talk it's getting in terms of like, this is a top tier, one of the best thrillers ever made, film of the year candidate? Yes. As someone who just psychological thrillers and horror and whatever lies in between those two is my genre. I feel like I truly could not have asked for anything more out of this film. I really do, even with projects that I love. I am usually able to go back after a rewatch or two and pick out a few things that I would have done differently, even if it's just for the sake of creative, mind bending a little bit, to think a little bit, like a creative exercise, just how I would change it. I'm not touching this masterpiece. I cannot think of a decision that Curry Barker made with the way that he made this film and directed this film that I would change. That I don't think it could have been done better. And that's just my honest to goodness thoughts. The performances that were delivered were incredible. Indy Navarrette's performance as Nikki was it blew me away the first time, and then again the second time, and then again the third time. I like to think that I go to the theater a lot. If there is a movie coming out that I'm interested in seeing, I go to the movie theater to see it. That's just how I operate. I have never in my life, I think the last time I remember hearing a crowd applaud was Avengers Endgame, and it wasn't even the end of the movie, it was just during the movie. The third time I went to the theater, which was a little over a week after its release, I went for the third time, and a sold out theater after Memorial Day weekend just erupted with applaud and cheering at the end of the movie. I've never experienced that myself before at the end of watching a movie, and it was warranted. I mean, just seeing the raw reaction on people's faces at the end when the 10 out of 10 credit scene song and the way that they did it is just phenomenal. As someone who will typically always give a psychological thriller / horror a chance up front, I usually find that they do one of two things wrong if it doesn't stick the landing. On one end, you have the film where, as Curry Barker talked about, directors or writers feel the need to over-explain everything to an audience, right? You take the stance that the audience is essentially stupid, and you're being walked and slow chewed through the entire thing, and it just makes it boring. You feel like you know too much. You feel like you're ahead of the game, essentially. And on the other end of that spectrum, sometimes it just feels like they go for sheer shock factor, and you're not really following a story. At the end of 2 hours, you feel like you didn't really watch a story. You just watched insanity. And while that might be some people's cup of tea, personally, I've never really been a fan of that. This film in particular, it feels like he just perfectly nitpicked the middle ground of those two, where you're shown and not told exactly what you need to know when you need to know it. You're not being dog walked or leashed through everything little by little. But you also get to the end, and there are very clear themes and clear messages to pick up on. There's a clear story going on, and you're not just sitting there feeling like, what did I just spend 2 hours watching? The story itself and the way that he blends his comedic elements with just sheer sinister scenes is incredible. I was completely unfamiliar with Curry Barker before this, so I had no idea about his sketch comedy channel that he runs with Cooper Tomlinson, who played Ian in the movie. I was checking out their comedies after the fact, and it is so amazing because you can see that background in the movie. There are such just minute funny moments, and a lot of people have been saying that they catch themselves laughing throughout the film. I think that's intentional, and the way that it gets you to just let your guard down just enough before, boom, he has you by the balls again, and you are just sitting in your seat mortified by what you're watching. The first jump scare itself, and it's not just with comedic moments, it's with the score and the soundtrack itself. Twice, I fell for an absolutely generational Current Joy's needle drop where I was suddenly had everything snatched from me. The first jump scare of the film with Televisions by Current Joy's playing when Nikki and Bear are having like their first kiss, and she snaps into real Nikki for a moment and is like, what the fuck, and flies backward. When I tell you I flew out of my chair during that, not once but twice, it is just a masterful use of a jump scare and something that sticks with you because of the premise. There was an interview Curry Barker did where he talked about the modern jump scare, as he termed it, and it was essentially the idea that he's not just going, the modern jump scare isn't just going for shock value or loud noises, but it's being able to incorporate things into the film that get the audience to be like, oh, I didn't like that, is the way he worded it. And you can tell that that is his philosophy after watching the film. There are so many just little things that happen, whether it's during a jump scare or just during the movie in general, that just stick with you. The stuff that just sits in your head, the backwards walking, the sideways walking with the flower pot. It is just such an eerie little details that are all over the place that just stick with you and you just keep seeing. The score and the soundtrack pretty much went band for band the entire time. The synthy songs that play with the One Wish Willow itself in the store were just unbelievable. The very first song, I think it's just called Obsession, that plays before the movie even starts. I mean, I was glued to my seat. And then again, count it, not one, but two Current Joy's needle drops in this indie film. It was just so perfect. And we cannot talk about the sheer insanity and being mortified without mentioning Indy Navarrette's performance as Nikki and whatever Nikki becomes. Unbelievable delivery, unbelievable face acting. The whole performance was just incredible. I was terrified. I was uneasy. I was very squirmy the whole time. It's just such a thrill. She does such a great job at creating thrill in those shifts where she snaps back and forth between literally looking like she's going to kill the person in front of her and being like, oh, okay. It's unbelievable. It is so well done from a director's standpoint. It is so well done, and from a performance standpoint, I mean, she delivered and then some. Michael Johnston, Megan Lawless, Cooper Tomlinson, they all did such a great job. It felt like such a great core four that did such a good job portraying these individually complicated characters that get a little bit more unwrapped in their own way as the film goes on. And then the story itself is just, it's one of those things, again, it's when I think of psychological thriller, I want something that the more I'm into it, the more I think, the more I'm rewarded. And that is exactly what this film felt like.
I'm your freaky Nikki.
Yeah, all right, bro. But when I left that first screening of the movie in the theater, I think the movie wrapped up around 12:30, just past midnight. And it's one of those ones where you're driving home listening to music and you're just thinking. And the more you think about what you just saw, the more it just haunts you. The more you realize that there are just so many twisted levels to everything that was going on. I mean, you essentially have the one totally innocent character, as I would say, in Nikki, is also the one character that directly expresses how she's unhappy and it just all she wants is to feel loved, and that's what she thinks she needs to be successful. And then Baron just, I mean, it might have been a world record for the most wrong decisions a person could have made over the span of 2 hours. To see such a pure want and such a pure desire like that get taken advantage of and get manipulated by a character that just could not think about anyone other than themselves is horrifying. I think the reason why psychological thrillers can really reach people more than horror is sometimes sheer supernatural and entity elements are just not enough to get people intertwined into the story enough. It feels like there's too much of a barrier between reality. There are a lot of people out there who can resonate, obviously not to the extremes and what happens in the end of the movie with face bashing and headshots and $1 billion falling out of the sky, but the elements themselves of the characters, because they're things that people can relate to and things that people can understand and things that people are genuinely fearful of, it makes this such a harrowing story to tell. I think there's just little moments that Curry Barker directed and that they wrote in that just do such a great job at leaving you chilled. I mean, again, by the third time I watched it, and even saying it now, it still gives me the chills. The scene where Nikki is pleading for Bear to kill her while she's sleeping, and Bear's only response is, "What would be so bad about being with me?" or "What is so bad about being with me?" to her saying, "I was never with you, Bear," and then "Please, please, please kill me," it's just, again, it's one of those things. I mean, it might be, for a film that got as wild as this one did, that might be the most horrific scene that just sticks with you. To see those little moments where she snaps out of it, the party itself, right? Again, you go from almost, even when she's kind of freaking out, it's still almost comedic. Like, you have a very tense, I thought Sarah was a goner when she's standing behind Sarah at the party. You know, she pulls her chair and leans in for the kiss. It's pretty comedic. Like, I was kind of chuckling most of the time. The theater was laughing. to her being like, I'm just kidding, guys. It's just a joke, into Indy's face acting and her saying, snapping what we would presume to be her snapping back into real Nikki for a moment and saying, it's not me, and smash the ball and hitting herself. That tone shift of just sitting there so loose and giggling into gripping the arms of your chair, trying to ground yourself, is just so incredibly done. And then in talking about this mix between comedic elements and just sheer mortifying moments, we can't obviously look past the phone call scene where none other than Curry Barker is on the other line talking to Michael Johnson, talking to Bear. The whole, we don't really do that. And it's funny. It's a funny moment. And then just like that, it's, oh, do you want to talk to her? And you have just this bone-chilling interaction where you hear the screaming and, oh, it's Nikki. Again, just those little details that stick with you, and the more you think about them, again, the more you're realizing that the real Nikki is there under this veil somewhere, and just having to experience and witness all of this against her own autonomy is absolutely mortifying and terrifying. I think it speaks volumes on a level of selfishness for Baron's character. I mean, the wish in and of itself and how far he goes before just being able to recognize what the issue is. I mean, we're deep into the film at this point. We're deep into the insanity, and he's calling to alter the wish, specifically alter it, not cancel it. And then he's suddenly willing to cancel it once he finds out that she would still love him. And then you have after Sarah has already died, when he's willing to throw in, he's in this argument with Ian about making the wish and making sure it's done right, and he's willing to throw in that last, and then you can have Nikki, and then act like he doesn't care. It's just such this self-absorbment. It's a more tangible horror to a lot of people than like an entity or a ghost or something of that nature. And then we see this all the way up until, I mean, it still sits with me now that by the end of the film, literally Ian and Sarah are dead. Nikki's tweaking at the door, and this guy is still trying to throw up his pills. The only reason that he doesn't throw up his pills that he just took is from whatever Nikki has become, wishing for him to love her back, or at least that's what I took that all to be. It's like, Baron, what is the plan, buddy? What could possibly be the plan at this point? I mean, seeing what that selfishness, that self-absorbment does in terms of just digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper without being able to fess up was alarming, terrifying, mortifying, all of the above. It just has all the elements of a phenomenal film, and I could not have been more. I went in completely blind, hadn't seen the trailer, knew nothing about any of the cast or Curry Barker or any of the crew. I knew nothing about the movie itself. It was literally just a knee-jerk, hey, there's a new movie out, let's go see it. Again, I'm quite honestly one of the best theater experiences that I can recall. So much so that I went back another 2 times. I saw the thing in theaters 3 times. I'm very excited to see how this stacks up against the Backrooms movie at the time I'm filming this. I'm going to see Backrooms in a few hours. Quite frankly, that was going to be my first movie trip of the year once I saw the trailer in April, and this kind of just fell into my lap. And now it feels like in a year where the lineup of films coming out is stacked throughout the summer and winter of this upcoming year, it feels like there is a realistic chance that I just saw my film of the year on basically by accident. It just does all the little things well, and that's something that really sticks out to me again. Those little moments, using comedy not just for the sake of using comedy, but to get the audience to let their guard down or settle in and then pull it back and infuse something harrowing into the audience. Again, the score, unbelievable by Rock Burwell. The soundtrack was fantastic. Everything from the opening scene to the credit roll was just, I can't think of a better decision that could have been made from Curry Barker in this film. The story itself is just such a win. To see someone make an indie film on such a small budget and then just create a smash hit with friends. The more I see faces pop up, the more I look into Curry Barker and Cooper Tomlinson's sketch comedies, the more faces I see that were in the movie. So to see that they brought all of their friends and all of their teammates with them for this big focus feature film is it just feels like it tells you everything you need to know about him as a person, and it makes you excited for what he has in store for us. It feels like this film really went headfirst into the idea that you can make a terrifying concept without having to rely on cheap jumps or loud noises or things flying up or flying across the screen. It really felt like someone dug into making the story itself terrifying and then building around it with the performances and the music and the eeriness. The way it was filmed was fantastic. The silhouettes and the use of the darkness on Nikki's face and the contrast was just unbelievable. All in all, could not be more excited. I mean, again, I went in completely clueless as to who Curry Barker was, who any of the cast was, and quite frankly, from here on out, Curry, Cooper, the rest of the cast, I'm sat if their name's attached to a project. I am sat in that theater chair with high expectations because this was phenomenal. Obviously, with a 26-year-old creating, again, what could be my film of the year, and for a lot of other people, the film of the year, just to be 2 weeks later followed up by a 20-year-old creating his own creepypasta A24 feature film in the Backrooms with Kane Parsons. It feels like we're on the verge of what could be a very rejuvenating renaissance of film, and I could not be more excited. And yeah, I think that's just about all I got for this one. If you made it this far, I hope you've had a chance to see the film, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to drop a comment down below. Let me know what you liked about the film, if you didn't like it, if you liked it, what your favorite parts were. I am a few hours away from going to see the Backrooms at the time of me filming this, so hopefully I'll have a review for that shortly out after this one. And we'll have some live reactions to some series and films coming out soon enough. So, in what could very likely be the preliminary episode of this channel, I hope you'll subscribe and follow along for the film journey. And again, feel free to let me know what you thought about the Film Obsession down below in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.